Hi there, welcome back to Pretty Much False. Today in this video, we are going to be talking about Zener diodes. Let's get into it.
Alright, before we start talking about Zener diodes, we'll just do a quick recap on normal diodes. So, normal diodes will only allow electricity flow from the anode to cathode. You can kind of see on the symbol here, there's an arrow pointing from the anode to cathode. You can think about that where it just allows electricity to flow from anode to cathode. But as soon as electricity wants to flow from cathode to anode, it will block it. You can see this line here. You can think of that as a gate, where it just blocks it there. That's what a normal diode does. A Zener diode, you can see the symbols are pretty much the same, only this one has the wings on it. So, a Zener diode will operate the same as a normal diode up until a certain reverse voltage, basically. So, it will act normal. Electricity can flow from anode to cathode, and as soon as it tries to flow from the cathode to anode, it will be blocked up until a certain voltage. Let's say this is a 5-volt Zener diode, and there's 5 volts difference between the cathode and anode. The Zener diode would break down and allow the voltage to flow through. It wouldn't break down physically, but electrically, and allow it to flow from cathode to anode. That'd be very useful for voltage regulation. So, it's also very important to know which pins cathode and anodes on your diodes. So, the terminal closest to the band on the diode, that is the cathode. That's very good for knowing which pin is which. Alright, let's do some testing on these diodes. Alright, now we'll test a normal diode just to show you what it's like. So, having our multimeter put into the diode test function. I did a previous video on multimeters. There'll be a link to that in the description down below. What we will do is we'll take our positive and put it on the cathode, and we'll take our negative and put it on the anode. And on a good diode, we should see nothing. You can see here, that's open circuit. So, if we were to turn it around and put the positive on the anode and the negative on the cathode, you can see we have a voltage drop of around 0.5 volts. This one right here doesn't have a decimal point for whatever reason, a multimeter here, but that's right, 0.5 volts. So typically, a silicon junction diode will have a voltage drop of around 0.6 volts. So, that is a perfectly acceptable and good diode there. And now, we'll need a little bit of a fancier setup to test a Zener diode. Alright, so to test our Zener diodes, we will use a multimeter, a variable power supply, or I guess really just a power source, and a 1K resistor, just because we don't want to pump too much current through our diode and that will wreck it, actually physically destroy it. So, what we'll have is our multimeter on voltage DC, and we'll be measuring across the Zener diode. The anode will be connected to the negative, or ground, of the power supply, and the power supply will be connected to the resistor, which will be connected to the cathode of the Zener diode. Also, the positive of the multimeter will be connected to the cathode of the Zener diode, and the negative of the multimeter will be connected to the anode of the Zener diode. So, let's hook this circuit up and test some Zener diodes. Alright, so we got our circuit all wired up here. I just have the Zener diode disconnected from the circuit right now. So we'll turn on our power supply, and maybe I'll turn up to about 5 volts. There we are. And what we'll do is we'll put our cathode, you can see the pin closest to the band. What we'll do is we'll put that to the positive. So here we go. I'll put the anode to the negative. And you can see this is a 2.78 volt Zener. So, that's what this Zener does. Let's see there's another Zener diode here. Let's see about that. Same thing, putting the cathode to the positive, the anode to the negative. And there we are, 2.62 volts. This is a 2.62 volt Zener diode. And there we go. That's how we test Zener diodes.
Thanks for watching this video today. Hope you learned something. If you did, please subscribe. That would really help my channel. If you're having trouble testing your Zener diodes, sometimes you have to increase the voltage of being applied to the cathode. Because right now, I was testing around 3 volt Zener diode, so it's 5 volts, which is no problem. But let's say you're trying to test a 12 volt Zener diode with 5 volts. Well, it wouldn't break down because the voltage wasn't high enough. So you might have to bring up the voltage on the cathode. That's one of the advantages of using a variable power supply. So you can turn it up until the Zener diodes starts to break down. and I'll see you next time.